Welcome to this video of Purple on Pearl. Alright, I'm stamping out the watermill large here on a pearl photo paper. And I'm doing these impressions with dye-based inks. Alright, putting on a little bit of a vignette around the perimeter to give it a little bit of a kind of a lighting lighting theme in here. And that's just putting on a little bit of a vignette around on the corners and especially the top and bottom left and right corners. All right, going in with a dye-based ink, kind of a watercolory type of looking impression here by using the Marvy 1500 series dye-based brush markers directly on the stamp. And we'll get this tree stamped in front of that rock there on the bottom. That's the boulders with lichen on the bottom. And after I do this impression, I'll go for a second impression of these. Well, they're purple aspens. We're just kind of taking our artistic liberties with the colors here for that, the specific color theme that I'm going for here. Going for that second impression. I did re-ink the stamp before I made this impression. You want to go for the strongest impressions here. You can go for a second impression sometimes if you want to get that ghost image, but I wanted a nice, vibrant, rich impression there, okay? See that tree down below is stamped behind the rock, and the first impression was in front of the rock. That's the way you can go in and add in a little bit of depth right there in the foreground area. Okay, now this stamp right here, which is the tree cluster, I'm going in to this stamp right here and coloring in the deciduous tree in the middle of the two evergreens, pink. And the evergreens are more on the green side. Okay, I did go in and blend in a little bit of extra tones in there. And this is going to give me a head start with my coloring. Okay, going for the third impression right here of that stamp. And we get it right down there on the base to give the scene kind of an overall color continuity. All right, on this scene right here, I really want to emphasize the purple type of color scheme to all of the different leaves in here. I guess it could be considered a spring type of scene. Going into the oak branch here and coloring in variations of violet. I start off with a darker tone, and then I'm going in and adding kind of pinks and magentas into those branch structures. Going for my impression here. And we have our branch there. Now, you don't see a ton of variation, but it does vary quite a bit if you look at it close up. All right. And going for another impression right here. It was kind of more on the purple sides, so I colored the stamp up just mostly with the pink pen right there to go for a little bit more of a pinkish tinged impression. And going for a lighter impression right over the darker ones makes it look more like the lighter tones are behind the darker tones. So getting a little bit of depth in the impressions up top. All right, now I stamped everything out in dye-based inks on this pearl photo paper. And that's because I wanted to utilize my alcohol markers for the coloring of the imagery within the space, mainly the mill and the boulders with lichen stamps, okay? So, because we stamped the imagery in dye-based inks, which are water-based, the alcohol inks won't smear the impressions, so it makes for a really great combination of media that are completely compatible with each other in the manner that we're utilizing them. All right, so I'm going for kind of a varied application of browns. I usually start off with light tones and I work a little bit darker, then I go back into the lighter tones to kind of blend in those darker tones out. One of the things that I was mentioning in the live stream is I try to make the different sides of the mill, top, left, and front sides, a little bit of a different value scheme, okay, so that the object looks like what we used to call in art classes turning in space. You want to make it look, you want to give it the illusion of 3 dimensions, and you can do that really simply by using different values on the different sides. Alright, so going into the rocks here with some different gray tones, going into the water with a little bit of gray tone, kind of emphasizing that kind of vignette type of structuring. And then when you add a little bit of a shadow to your different objects, it gives them more of a visual weight to make them look like they're sitting in the scene. Okay, just to vary my water area down below from the sky a little bit, I'm going in with the tiny rock stamp, giving it some texture in that water area. And I thought I would give that water area a little bit of tone with this Memento blue, and I'm kind of blending that in. I'm not trying to color in the entire area because I want that center area to look like it's reflecting light. Okay, going in with the 3mm paint pens. This is where these trees really become a lot more dimensional, okay? The acrylic paint pens are a little bit more opaque. They're not completely opaque. They're still a little bit translucent, so the colors underneath will show through. But with opaque types of media, well, translucent, but a little bit closer to opaque than transparent on the opacity scale. You start off with darker tones, and then I'm going into my lighter tones here. So this is a light violet. I started off with a darker violet. Adding this to both the imagery below and the imagery up top in the form of those hanging branches, going into that deciduous tree in between the evergreen trees on the tree cluster. And that's my inspiration piece right there, that photograph that I was showing people in the live stream. I wanted to give kind of a real vibrant, plush, I don't know, surface to this scene. It would be kind of more fantasy looking, but, you know, as we can see in that photograph that I was showing you, that book, you know, those types of images do exist out there. Those types of color schemes in nature do exist. Okay, going in with a 0.7mm paint pen. I didn't have this color in the larger paint pen, so I have to do it with the smaller one. But getting different kind of scale in those little dots isn't a bad idea. You know, it kind of gives you a little bit of variation, a little bit more detailing. But that kind of more, I don't know, kind of a hot pink added a nice character to the foliage. All right, now I'm going in with this little tan kind of beige color here, giving it that little bit of a warmer tinge. All right, following suit with the light green here. I did go through some darker greens on those evergreens just to give those trees a little bit more of a, kind of textural continuity with the purple ones, okay? You want to bring in kind of consistency between the different objects so that they don't look so different from one another. You want to bring those textures over different things. So like with this white paint pen that I'm using here, I'm using that on the watermill too, kind of on the wheel and some areas up on the rooftop. Now, to bring things even closer together, I'm going with a little bit of white pigment ink, okay? Kind of in the form of a little bit of fog. You use that over some of the mill, over the different trees. You can do that in the foreground a little bit too. So you're kind of bringing in this textural continuity to the piece, and it kind of blends things together a little bit more. Plus, it gives you that little element of mist. Okay, and this scene right here, it's all about purples and pinks, so I'm adding in some of these little pink dots in the water, like they're floating on the water's surface. And again, it's kind of a color and textural continuity, adding some of those fallen blossoms on my rocks there. And when you add those types of common types of elements or colors or textures throughout your piece, you bring everything together. Okay, so that's an example of my paint pens and alcohol pens on the pearl printing paper, and you can see that nice shimmer that you get from that reflected light using this type of surface over something like a white cardstock or something like that. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it.